Hi class, I'm recording the class from home. I had a little fender bender on my knee yesterday and I'm going to the doctor, so I'll see how it turns out. Well, the first thing is go vote if you haven't done that. Um, and let's move on. So, what I'm going to be talking about is business intelligence and kind of some of the learning outcomes which I'm hoping you should have taken after we are done with this session would be to define what's a data warehouse and to get some reasons why it can make a more effective use of information for a manager. Explain ETL and the role of data mart in business. We'll talk about data mining and then what are the three forms of mining structured and unstructured data from the web. And then we'll identify the advantages of using business intelligence to support manager decision making. I think all of you have now a very good appreciation of what good information can do for an organization, and this is kind of a extension of the same idea to apply to a more specific behavior of data warehouses and data mining. So when we talk about data warehousing, I think warehousing we look at in the traditional physical world as storing or staging products in a warehouse for distribution to customers. Now, this physical distribution is slow. It can take on different forms as shipping through a post office, sending it through a truckload or less than truckload. So that's the physical shipment of goods. On the other hand, when we talk about a data warehouse is more in the sense that it sends information digitally over the internet as and when it's needed. Now, when some people may ask, well, what's the difference between a data warehouse and a database management system? Well, the database management system is more specific to one user or one organization. On the other hand, data warehouse caters to multiple number of users from many different organizations. So it's not dedicated to one particular user. And I'll touch upon that a little bit more. So data warehouses extend the transformation of data into information. These become the storehouses for data, and then there's many different layers of application which sit on top of the database and they provide meaningful information to managers. Um, and this began in the 1990s when managers said, well, we don't need to deal with the day-to-day operations. We need to deal more with how to make the business more competitive as a whole. And that's what led to data warehousing. And the data warehouse essentially provided the ability to support decision making without essentially disrupting the day-to-day operations. So, what are some of the benefits of a data warehouse? As I just mentioned, that a database and a data warehouse, the big difference is that database is for one single application, whereas data warehousing stores information from multiple database, multiple applications, and even caters to multiple industries. An example of that would be uh, Amazon. Amazon stores on its cloud information for many different organizations, and they sell that space to different organizations, so they don't have to deal with storing their own servers on their site. Oops, sorry about that. And essentially, what these data warehouses support is OLAP. OLAP stands for Online Analytical Processing, which essentially what it does is it supports processing in an online environment. So data warehouse is a logical collection of information from many databases and many business sectors. The primary purpose is to aggregate information throughout an organization into a single place. So essentially, it makes for good information decision purposes. Now, we talked about ETL. So the ETL processes extraction, transformation and loading. In this process, what happens is a process that extracts information from both external and internal databases. It transforms the information using a common set of enterprise definition. What that means is it'll take the information and apply same metrics all across. So, for example, if an organization is trying to find all the people that live in Texas, so what it'll do is it'll take the internal and external sources and then it'll apply the Texas filter and transform the information from the data by applying that filter. And then it loads that information onto a data warehouse because the company only needs that specific information. Now, this information is passed on to data mart. A data mart is usually a more specific user within an organization. What that means is somebody that needs to use that information, let's say within the accounting department, they need to know all the customers that are in Texas that owe this company something um, for services that were sold to them. That's what the accounting department needs. So data mart is essentially a subset of the data warehouse information. Okay, moving on. We talked about the internal databases. We talked about external. The internal can be marketing, sales, inventory, billing information. On the other hand, the external databases can be uh, competitor information, industry information, and other external pieces of information. The ETL is applied to that data and then it gets stored in this data warehouse and then the ETN is again applied and now it goes to the marketing data mart, which is a subset of users that need that specific information. So let me just go back. So question of the day that I want you to answer in a PDF document is what is the distinguishing criteria between a data warehouse and a data mart? And if you would answer that in a Word document and send that to me before the end of the day, I'll appreciate that. Um, so that was question of the day number one. Let's move on. So we talk about a multidimensional analysis. When we did some of the analysis for the pivot table in the early labs that we did, we essentially did information on a bunch of information pieces that related to that database. So we talk about databases which usually have two-dimensional tables. So you have the headers on top, and then you have the rows on the left-hand side. So that's a two-dimensional. In a data warehouse and data mart, information is multidimensional. It contains layers and layers of information and columns and rows. And this is similar to the pivot tables that we did early on. So dimension is a particular attribute of information. Uh, And a cube is a common term for representation of the multidimensional information. I'll just show you how that is different. So we talk about cubes of information. I think users can slice and dice the cube to drill down to the information that they need. So as you can see, cube A, it represents store information. So for example, it has store information, it has product information, and it has promotional information. So it's essentially three dimensions of information. And as you see, the cube B that you see on the picture here it represents type of information displaying promotion, and then but it only displays the information for promotion 2 for all the stores and all the products. And then you can see uh, cube C, which represents information for only promotion number 3 for product B and store number 2. So that's how the information, I know it's a little difficult to see for cube C, but that's at the center of the cube. So that is essentially analyzing that piece of information from different dimensions. And that's what information is stored in a data warehouse. Now, many times, I think we talked about previously about how data can sometimes be corrupted. You can have bad data. Uh, So having good quality information in the data warehouse is really important. I think many a times companies get carried away with getting too much information, and sometimes that information may not be right information, and that can be catastrophic in the sense that, as I mentioned, excuse me, if you have bad data in, you make bad decisions. So, and sometimes if you have bad data sources, you can expect that the organization may not be making good decisions. So, now, is it realistic to assume that an organization can get 100% accurate um, information or data that is being fed to them? Maybe not, because getting all the right pieces of information may be so cost prohibitive that you may never get 100% correct data. So it's too expensive to get 100% correct data because you have to put people and measures in place so that you don't get corrupted data. But you can get close to 100% and not have to spend as much as you would for the 100% correct information. So moving on, so an organization must maintain high quality data in the data warehouse, and information cleansing and scrubbing essentially is a process in which information is kind of cleaned and weeded out. Any problems in the data is weeded out and made sure that the correct information is being processed. So, for example, if you take a look at the customer information highlights on one, and this essentially example gives why information cleaning and scrubbing is necessary. So, customer information exists in several operational systems. In each system, you can see that the information is in a different format. And then if you change the customer ID from one database to the other database, then you may think that you're speaking to the same person, but then the system doesn't know it's the same person. So determining which contact is accurate and correct for this customer depends on the business process that is being executed. So you can see that Hans Hultgreen has no area code added on. And then you can see that you have Anne Logan, which again has no area information for all of the databases, and that can be a problem if the business decides to move to a different state or a country altogether. So how can this be done? So have you ever received a piece of information which is the same email but from the same person with different contact information? So that can be a problem. So you can see sales has different information, and then you have customer service, which has different information, and billing. Now, all of those could be consolidated in one single database, which is customer information, and then everybody is assigned a single ID, as you can see on the right hand side, where you have the customers in which you have 1000, 1002, I'm sorry, 10,001, 10,002, 10,003, and 10,004, and so on. And then the person that is missing is added on as a unique customer to the table. So, if you have ever received more than one piece of identical mail, such as a flyer, catalog, or application, why do you think this may have occurred? I think there's many reasons that it could have occurred is because different systems were processing that mail or catalog or flyer that was being sent to you. Now, if a business is sending multiple identical marketing material to me, and it has happened to me a lot, is I get the three promotional materials from the same person three times over. What's the expense of doing that? Well, you could potentially alienate the customers. I once got a flyer 3 or 4 times over. I was so mad at this company that I called them up and said, could you please stop sending me more flyers? Because I'm really mad that you're sending me so many flyers. Anyway, so I'll be stopping in a bit for the first break. Make sure that you go back and review the question of the day, number one, and answer that in a Word document and send that to me. All right, I'm signing off for a little bit, and I'll be back in a moment.